What's good, Atlanta? This is the Blog and Dirty podcast, where Dirty Bird is the word if you haven't heard. I'm your host, John Buhler, lead writer for FanSided. This is an Atlanta Falcons podcast for the FanSided network and the site Blog and Dirty. We love talking about our Dirty Birds, good, bad, or ugly, because we chose to be a fan of this team. So before we begin, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, give us a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. Really helps the show grow. I love being in a better mood, talking about this team right now. Atlanta finally got back into the win column. They took care of business versus the delightful New Orleans Saints in their building. And maybe the Falcons can turn their season around. They are 4-7 now. The bleeding has stopped. They're no longer riding a 5-game losing streak. They've won 1 in a row. Maybe they can win 2 in a row. You got to play the team that I don't have a whole hell of a lot of respect for. A team that's more dysfunctional than this. That would be the New York Jets. I use the word jetty to be very disrespectful towards them. They don't know what they're doing. The last time they made the playoffs, I was in college, and I'm 36 years old. And this is the Block and Nitty podcast. But anyway, that's not really what this show is going to be entirely about. We're going to be talking about some good vibes, maybe some bad vibes, and stuff that we don't really know yet. Again, we're coming to you here semi-live here from Atlanta, the day before Thanksgiving here. Be sure to spend time with your families. Be safe out there. Have a good time. Eat some good food. Get some rest and relaxation. It is the holidays, and it's a very tumultuous time for all of us here in the United States of America. It'd be like that sometimes. So without further ado, let's get rolling here with our first run of the day. I got to be straight with y'all. Jalon Walker and James Pearce Jr. are becoming franchise cornerstones. I don't really care what happens the rest of the season for the Falcons. Would I love to see this team make the playoffs at 10-7? That'd be amazing. Go on an incredible run. But it's become readily apparent that taking 2 edge rushers out of the SEC and Jalon Walker out of Georgia and James Pearce Jr. out of Tennessee is going to work out quite well for the Falcons. Once again, these 2 guys have really started to come along. They play off of each other. It's kind of gotten to the point where, as expected, Arnold Ebiketie and Leonard Floyd have become expendable. These guys are now, not just promising rookies. They're potential franchise cornerstones. I wish I had all the stats available to look at right now, but I think Atlanta's got a bunch of guys right now that have had multiple 5+ sacks on the season. So I'm going to pull this up here on Pro Football Reference real quick, and I hadn't looked at this right away, and it's going to be kind of surprising because this team for years could not get after the passer. And I understand it's more than just sacks; it's about pressure and stuff like that. But on the year, Brandon Dorlus has 6 from the offensive interior. Jalon Walker has 5. Zach Harrison has 4.5. James Pearce Jr. has 4. Caden Ellis has 3. Laquel London has 3. Rook Ohorhoro has 2. D. Alford has 2. Ronnie Harrison has 2. The point is the pressure is coming from all over the place here within the context of Jeff Ulbrich's defense. I think it's utterly fantastic. The real thing here is when you have 2 guys who are draft classmates who are of equal skill, talent, caliber, they push each other to be better. Because I don't think either of them wants to be seen as worse than the other. I mean, they played at rival schools in the SEC. Georgia and Tennessee do not like each other. And I'll say this. I'll give Terry Fontenot a lot of credit for taking those 2 guys. No matter what happens this season with the coaching staff, I think Fontenot deserves to have another year to be the general manager, even with a new regime. I understand the quarterback situation has been tumultuous. I think coaching's played a big part in it as well. But I would say, look, Walker was the most versatile chess piece in college football last year. I mean, he did what he did versus Texas last year, and he did it versus the Saints, and he ate Kelvin Banks Jr.'s lunch. Again, that's what he does. The Saints are so stupid. Why would you not take him? You could have taken this guy at 9. Carolina could have had him at 8, but, Tetairoa McMillan's a fantastic player, and we have issues with the Panthers right now. So, I understand maybe they had bigger concerns there. Get Bryce Young some help. But Walker, you can put him anywhere, and he's able to make plays. I would say at least once a game, he makes a huge play, maybe 2 or 3. When you have a player who's figuring that out, 10 games into his rookie year, you couldn't be more impressed. And the fact that he was kind of nebulous within the context of Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann's offense, that's important to keep in mind as well. So very pleased to see my dog, succeed here for the Falcons. The guy who covers Georgia for Rivals, Roddy Nabusi. I never know how to say his name, Roddy, but Roddy. He always says good things happen when you draft Georgia players. Maybe the Falcons are kind of starting to figure that out. And then as far as James Pearce Jr. is concerned, look, you rolled the dice. You gave up your first round pick to get this guy in a deal with the Rams. And it serves us to keep winning games because we don't want the Rams, who I think right now are my pick to win the Super Bowl. They're playing fantastic football right now. Matthew Stafford, go Dogs, is probably going to win the MVP. 36, 37, 38 years old. Yeah, age is just a number. I mean, I'm falling apart at the seams, and he's playing out of his mind. I'll say this: like you made a very risky decision to go get Pearce, and at this point, we're talking 10 games in. You have 11 games in, I think, 4 and 7. Yeah, 11. Can't do math right now. Whatever, it's Thanksgiving. We're trying to feed 13 people tomorrow at my sister's house. A lot of people coming from out of town. Still don't know what I'm doing tonight. Maybe we're doing something with my family. I have no idea. I am working today until 5. And then I'll have tomorrow off, and then I'll be working Black Friday and Saturday and Sunday because that's just how football season works. It's a busy time in college football and the busy time in the NFL, and this is the Blog Dirty Podcast. But I will say this with Pearce. Like, entering the season, I'm like, this guy is going to be more of a rotational guy, a little bit more of a project than like a prospect. I read that wrong. He's a player. He's a guy that I think we can look at in year 2, opposite of Walker, and be like, okay, go get him. Go pin your ears back and go get him. And what I really think is he's learning a lot from his teammates. He's not just a speed guy like I thought he was coming out of Tennessee, kind of like thinking like, oh, he's going to be the next Vic Beasley, which kind of always scared the hell out of me. But he's opportunistic. He's learning a lot for that from Leonard Floyd, who I think is a tremendous mentor for him as well. Ebiketie as well, too, but the fact that I go to the season, I'm like, okay, I would be happy if these two guys combined to get the Falcons, 10 sacks? They're at 9 right now, and they've got, 6 more games left. They're playing with a lot of confidence. They're really hitting their stride, and I'm not going to say either of them are going to get to 10 or approach 10, but it's been a huge success. And I think the fact it's kind of been, running back by or pass rush by ensemble here. We got 39 sacks on the season, coming from 15 different players because, Divine Diablo has half a sack here. Sam Roberts 1, Arnold Ebiketie 1, David Onyemata 1, Leonard Floyd, Billy Bowman Jr. have 1.5 as well. You're Pat, the pressure is coming from everywhere, coming from all different sides. And these guys are only going to get better. And I think the fact that they don't have to just hone in on one guy, just stop him because the Falcons can't get after them in a very pitiful way. That's not the case anymore. This leads me to believe that there is a chance that this team can continue to get better as the season moves along, and regardless of whatever happens with the quarterback situation moving forward. So I'm been very, very impressed with these two rookies. Worth the pick right now. Can't really complain with what they've done in recent weeks. So with that, let's move on to our second run of the day. Another thing that I'm feeling very positive about. Very impressed with Kirk Cousins in his second start of the season. He started versus the Dolphins in a game where the worst game of the season for Atlanta. Just terrible. I can't believe we lost to the effing Dolphins at home. But this was the first week where it's like, okay, Penix is done. It's Cousins to show the rest of the way. And I think the offense honestly looked a lot more, trying to figure the word, a lot more cohesive. It wasn't always perfect. I think there's things where Cousins is at limited athleticism or fading athleticism is going to be an issue. But he also didn't have Drake London out there. One of the things that I've always liked about Cousins in this offense is he gets the ball to Darnell Mooney. And Mooney was a guy that I think Penix never really developed a great rapport with. Again, Mooney got hurt. Penix always had a good rapport with Pitts and London as well. But Penix really only throws to about 4 receivers anyway, and that includes Bijan Robinson out of the backfield. I think the fact that, Cousins threw a touchdown pass to David Sills the fifth. He made the team. He's been on the team the whole time. Hadn't really gotten many targets. Now he's kind of being worked more into the offense. And you got to love that deep ball to really just break the Saints back. The Saints possessed the ball so much in the second half. Cousins is like, yeah, I'm going to let it rip to Mooney. And it was vintage Cousins. It was one of those things where like, this is what he did at Washington for years. This is what he did in Minnesota for years. This is what he did briefly in Atlanta prior to turning into a pumpkin last year around Halloween. The other big thing is you can operate under center now. And Penix, and I'll touch on that here just shortly, but like when you have Cousins being able to operate, under center with a little bit more mobility, because again, he played a lot out of shotgun last year because he was coming back from the ruptured Achilles. But because like he can move under center, use play action, use effectiveness, you're using a quarterback who prides himself as made millions of dollars on being an incredibly accurate thrower, a guy who throws a very catchable football. By being able to sell the run with Robinson and Algier behind you, you're opening up wider passing lanes. Again, in the NFL, you're not throwing to an open guy, you're throwing a guy open. And I mean, the only time that the only points the Saints scored last week was on a field goal and then on a pick six of Cousins where it hit Pitts in the hands. I saw somewhere out there he's got the hand strength of a toddler. It's kind of unbelievable in some instances as well. But like when you have the offense for the final 7 weeks of the season being entirely sorry, it's my best friend's birthday, and I wished him happy birthday. He's like, oh, he's finally messaged me back. So it's not Slack. It's my phone. People always they always want to talk to me when I'm doing the show, but this is a good thing. Anyway, you can build on this. You can install more things. Your offense will look different because Cousins and Penix are not the same player. And I think that's kind of been an issue with the team as well, with drafting Penix and then signing Cousins prior to that. One's right-handed, one's left-handed, one's more of an accuracy guy, one's more of a power guy. Neither are much of a runner at any point like this. They both have had major lower body injuries in their career. So it makes things challenging for Zach Robinson. And I'll say this before I move on here. It should be, I want to make sure Blog Dirty Bird Nation knows this. This is good news for the Falcons, and follow me on this. So last night or yesterday evening, the college football coaching carousel is going along. We've seen James Franklin take the job at Virginia Tech. We had our second big hire happen yesterday with North Texas head coach Eric Morris taking over at Oklahoma State. And then the early hours this morning, former Falcons head coach Jim Mora Jr. at UConn is now taking over at Colorado State, the former place where Georgia offensive coordinator Mike Bobo used to work. It all comes full circle and anything like that. Jim Mora Jr. did a great job there in stores for the Huskies. So, go play in a conference. CSU's got resources. I get that. But back to Oklahoma State. Terrible, absolutely terrible football team in the Big 12. Worst in the Big 12. One of the absolutely worst in the Power 4. The idea was people were thinking like, oh, we're going to hire Zach Robinson, who starred there. And again, he was the quarterback there in Stillwater, throwing the ball to Des Bryant and some of those early Mike Gundy teams in the early to mid to late 2000s and everything like that. Distinctly remember Georgia playing in Stillwater and losing to Oklahoma State in a very good Zach Robinson game for the Pokes. But because Eric Morris is taking over there at Stillwater, it doesn't seem like, there's no – with Zach Robinson, he's not going to put his foot he doesn't have 1 foot out the door. It serves him to be fully invested in trying to get the most out of Cousins. Look, if he wants to save his job and Raheem Morris's job, he's going to have to figure out how to get the most out of this offense. And look, I'm not expecting this team to make the playoffs. I'm expecting them to play, cohesive and together and look like the people who are calling the plays are competent. Clearly, Jeff Ulbrich's competent. Jeff Ulbrich is a damn good defensive coordinator. He's been the best defensive coordinator we've had here. God, Rich Brooks. It's been that long. We're talking 30-something years, man. 98 Falcons, 25 Falcons. This is the Blogging Dirty podcast. But the fact that Robinson's not going to go take a job in college, which I think he'd be qualified for, but do you really want to do you not want to, there's not a lot of upside to taking over your alma mater when it's just been terrible, when your head coach and your mentor failed miserably at his alma mater. You got to bring somebody else in there new. Eric Morris is more of a Mike Leach guy, played at Texas Tech and everything like that, Washington State. Actually got the job at, I believe, North Texas the day that Mike Leach passed. So, again, I think Eric Morris is going to be doing great things there. North Texas could still make the playoff. They're 9-1. If they win the American, they might get in. But it serves Zach Robinson to get the absolute most out of Kirk Cousins. And I think everybody just needs to be full steam ahead with this core right now. We got to play game by game, week by week, and we'll see what happens. Got to make something positive out of the season because I gotta pass now. I gotta pass on this. This is really concerning, and I can't believe I'm doing this. But I'm gonna pass on Michael Penix Jr. not being comfortable under center. It's not good. I'm gonna take a sip of coffee before I unpack this in the second half of our show. This is something that frightens me. Okay, so we know that Cousins is on the wrong side of 35. He's 37, going on 38. The Falcons can get it kind of out of his deal next year. Not a lot of money. Penix is entering year 3 out of Washington. In the last 8 years, he's had 5 season-ending injuries dating back to his time in high school, growing up in Greater Tampa. Look, he's played for Kalen DeBoer, one of the best offensive minds in college football. Ryan Grubb was also his OC there at Washington. And I understand that Penix is not much of a runner, like even more now with the partially torn ACL, and he just had surgery yesterday. So bless up to him and get healthy, get back, get ready to go. But if you're a quarterback who's not really a threat to run very much, and you can't do anything under center, meaning you're not comfortable putting your hand under your center's ass and receiving the football, and then trying to use your running backs to set up play action and everything like that, you're making things much more difficult for your offensive coordinator than they need to be. Look, I understand it's high school football is more spread. I know college is a little more spread, but this is the NFL, baby. And look, because Penix has an absolute gun for a left arm, he can make throws that Cousins can't do just because the ball gets out there much quicker. He doesn't have as much touch on it as Cousins does because, he's in year 2 as opposed to year 14. The other big thing is when you are able to use play action and shotgun and get comfortable with that, turning your back to the pass rush, you can sell it because people that are playing against the Falcons offense, oh my God, we're going to give the ball to Robinson or Algier. We got to be prepared for thunder or lightning coming down at us. But because Penix is not as precise of a thrower as he needs to be, you do the play action. You're going to get a safety or a linebacker to bite and to commit, and you'll have it a little bit more open lane to get the ball to Mooney, to get the ball to London more cleanly, to get ball that will hit Pitts in the hand, you'll catch it, to open up opportunities for other receivers out there, whether that's David Sills V, Casey Washington, Kadarius Hodge, does not matter. This goes back to the big thing here with Raheem Morris. I understand you came from the Sean McVay, Shanahan coaching tree. I don't give a damn what happens in the preseason. You are playing some starters next year because that was a problem for us. And this could have all been rectified getting those reps. You can't be like, oh, Penix isn't comfortable under center. I don't care. You just run stuff out of shotgun. Do it in practice. Get those reps because, this is a guy who played 6 years of college football. He's entering year 3. This is a contract year. We got to figure out if he's the franchise quarterback or not. I understand Cousins is probably going to go somewhere else. Maybe you retain him for another year. You may have a stopgap guy there if Penix isn't fully healthy to go. But we can't fiddle fart around here. You look at everybody in the NFL. It doesn't matter if it's Patrick Mahomes. It doesn't matter if it's Josh Allen. Everybody in the NFL that has staying power in this league has to get better understanding. Baker Mayfield's had to learn how to do this. They all have to do it. It's all about being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And this is one of the things that I think hurts Tua. Tua really only goes to his left, and it shrinks the field. You can be immensely talented like Tua and Penix and be able to survive some of these things and get second contract and what have you. But the NFL is just too many good teams, too well coached for you to really play with a hand tied behind your back. So this does not land well with me, and this kind of is the first time. This is the first time that I've really had some doubts about Penix. They've kind of been coming in a little bit throughout the season. I'm like, he needs to be more accurate, and he's taking way too many intentional grounding penalties. Really need to. I understood there was injury concerns. I talked about this at the year. People are like, Buhler, shut up. I effing told you. I told you this was going to be an issue. But I still think he's talented. I still think it'll work out. I mean, there's guys like what John Elway played in the NFL without an ACL in his knee. Dan Marino could always throw it. He just had Achilles issues. Ken Stabler had so many knee injuries. You can overcome this and be great too. I mean, it's all fine. But you got to be able to – we can't go into next season where we're operating strictly out of shotgun or the pistol with Penix and Bijan lined up behind him. I understand they want to have Bijan have more of a running lane to kind of pick up speed and become more elusive. But, you got to become more multiple. You got to become more versatile. You can't be so gosh darn predictable with your play calling. Because maybe I've been a little bit too mean on Zach Robinson in that regard. But at the same time, like, you got to find some way to adjust. There's times in the season you can practice that. You can get more comfortable. There may be certain routes a guy needs to become more comfortable throwing. You have to get better. This is the season. I know it's the grind, but like, you still got to put in your craft. I still try to get better as a writer, even during football season. It doesn't serve you to be idle and think that like this is going to be good enough. Maybe the slower time of the year is when you can really focus in on like all this other stuff. But like, we can't have another year where Penix can't do anything under center. That's not okay. And let's get out of here with some punt here. Let's make a pick against the spread versus the flightless New York Jets. You know how I was kind of flying and like, okay, we got to beat the Dolphins. We're going to be okay. We're going to turn this around after, losing a tough one versus the 49ers. I'm going to be PISSCD pissed if we don't beat the Jets. I understand it's on the road. I understand it's at MetLife where Cindy rips like a popsicle stick. So I want everybody out there on either side of the stadium, with Jets or Falcons, just to come out of this okay. That's what I want. So entering play. Atlanta's 4-7. They're 2-4 away from home. The Jets are 2-9 and they're 1-5 at home. According to ESPN Bet Sportsbook, the Falcons are laying 2.5 points on the road. The over-under is 39.5. The associated money lines are Atlanta minus 145 and New York plus 125. I'm going to try to do the math real quick, and I'm not doing super good at this. I'm going to take the let's see, math. I'm going to take the slight under, and I'm going to pick the Falcons to win 21-17. So that gets you to 38, but they win and cover. There's a few things at play here that I think favor the Falcons a little bit more than the Jets. The first is, even though you're both on your backup quarterback and the veterans Kirk Cousins and Tyrod Taylor, Cousins has always had a higher ceiling than what Taylor does, and even if Fields was out there for the Jets, it doesn't really matter. I don't trust him, and more importantly, I don't really trust the Jets coaching staff. I think it's actually worse than the Falcons in some ways. Again, Aaron Glenn's the first-time head coach. He's trying to figure this out. He was a fantastic defensive coordinator there for the Detroit Lions for years. Followed Dan Campbell to Detroit from New Orleans, again, kind of cut from the same staff under Sean Payton. Aaron Glenn played in the NFL from namely the Jets and the Texans, had some success, a couple Pro Bowls here and there in the 90s and early 2000s. Not the biggest fan of Ingstrand, the offensive coordinator there in New York. I cannot believe that they took Justin Fields. Like, just draft a quarterback. You could have Jackson Dart, man. You could have had Jackson Dart, and you let him go to the Giants. And even though he got hurt and he's got concussions and stuff like that, you're much better off having Jackson Dart than Armand Membu. And look, the Jets are kind of back where they are. They got to draft a quarterback. They're going to be in the sweepstakes for the likes of Fernando Mendoza, Ty Simpson, Dante Moore, whomever. They got to draft a quarterback. And maybe Membu is the guy that can kind of protect him a little bit. But they've always had offensive linemen, so it doesn't really matter. I think the big thing that really serves the Falcons here is, their interim head coach was last year when Robert Saleh got fired. That'd be Jeff Ulbrich. Jeff Ulbrich knows this roster. Jeff Ulbrich's been in his bag this season. He's been calling some great defenses. Obviously, you got to account for certain members of the Jets, but they don't have Sauce Gardner on their team anymore. Garrett Wilson's okay, what am I doing here? You could have had Tyler Warren too, and he's on the Colts, and maybe that's a better move for the Colts there as well. I look at this situation in New York, and they can't look. The Jets are dysfunctional because Woody Johnson is their owner, and he's he's all over the place. A bit more meddling than Arthur Blank. Arthur Blank's a good guy, but obviously kind of a tight clinch guy, which I think permeates the entire Falcons organization. We always play tight and tough in crunch time situations, and we lose those games. I think it's a top-down sort of thing. I'm not ruling out the Jets beating us. I mean, we're the Falcons. We can beat anybody and we can lose to anybody. This is what we're all about. I mean, we were 1 point away from tying the Patriots, who haven't lost a game since September. And when we lose the Dolphins, who I think are also 4-7, they're playing a little bit better. Maybe Mike McDaniel gets to keep his job. Maybe getting Chris Greer out of the building has really helped the Dolphins in some capacity. Maybe not having Tyreek Hill play. Maybe things are helping out. Get some toxic people out of your building. But I think Ulbrich knows this roster a little bit better than we may give him credit for. There may be some sort of game planning here. And I think the way that the Falcons need to win is they need to win like the Jets do when the Jets are good. Play great defense and run the ball. Anytime the Jets have been worth a damn in my lifetime, they've got those things. You have the Curtis Martins of the world. You have guys on defense like Darrell Revis. You got guys, I'm trying to think who else is on there. You got to play like a Jet style game. And you also need some timely plays from your quarterback when the Jets are good. Whether that's Chad Pennington, whether that was Danny Testaverde, briefly Mark Sanchez, Ryan Fitzpatrick. You kind of got a guy that like the quarterback's like making smart decisions with the football. Maybe we're due for a Kirk Cousins stinker. I hope not. But if he basically limits the interceptions to maybe 2 and throws about 2 touchdowns or something like that, I think that they can get this done. Spread the ball around. I think getting Drake London back is going to be big. We'll see what happens here. But, yeah, I feel the Falcons aren't going to win by a lot. I don't think that they're a team that's going to really blow anybody out. I think that the Jets are a little bit more talented than the Saints. But they're not a good football team. It is on the road, but you got back-to-back road games. Take care of business and come out of this thing with a victory. Get to 5-7. Have and see what happens. See what happens the rest of the way. Just take it one game at a time. You can handle the Jets. This is an easier part of the schedule. Let's take care of business, boys. Yeah. And this was episode 69 of the Blog and Dirty Podcast. That's right. It's a very nice episode. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter or the X at Buhler118. You can follow along with the show on YouTube at Blog and Dirty FS. You can follow along on X at Blog and Dirty. Be sure to watch, like, comment, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. Give us a 5-star review. Any platform really helps the show grow. I put together some awesome playlists out there. We've got some interviews from back in the day. We've got post games, weekly shows. It's going to be a lot of fun. Continue to build this thing up there. We're over 350 subscribers right now. Let me get to 500 before the start of next year, because I think when we get to that point, we can monetize. We can really get more interesting conversations going here on the show. But I really appreciate getting to know each and every one of you here within Blog and Dirty Bird Nation. It's been a lot of fun. This is not always the easiest team to cover. I mostly cover college football there on FanSided, mostly cover Georgia, League at Large. That's kind of my number one. I love the Falcons too. Write about them when I can. Obviously, the roles and stuff change and everything within the sport. But, I love focusing kind of viewing the NFL just from the lens of a tortured Falcons fan. It's been I say that now that I enjoy it because we haven't lost the Jets yet. And if we do, it'll be a really sad show here on Sunday. But, be sure to read everything on the Atlanta Falcons on Blog and Dirty. FanSided.com, NFL Spin Zone, ATL All Day for a regional betting network. You can read stuff on SI. Really just consume any sort of Minute Media branded content here on the Atlanta Falcons, or anything else you want out there. Have a happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Be safe out there. Enjoy yourself. Do what you got to do. Just get a little rest here, because this is when football really starts to get good. Once again, thanks for listening, and this is the Blog and Dirty Podcast.